Welcome to Phone Booth Fighting, everybody, your twice weekly podcast, courtesy of that man, the two-time UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Frank Mir, and this guy, the two-time funniest comedian in Reno, Richard Hunter. And I guess I should start working in jiu-jitsu silver medalist, right? I should probably be working in my Naga title. Yeah, because don't laugh, James. I just heard James Vick laughing, the Texecutioner. I haven't even brought him on yet, and he's already laughing. Just so you know, James, our plan is, because you're getting a shot, we're decking out the studio here. Frank's going to put his two heavyweight title belts up on the wall, and I'm going to put my Naga silver medal somewhere right in this area balance. Right here. Yeah, absolutely.
Hard work, dedication pays off.
Well, people need to know that on this show, you're not the only award-winning martial artist.
Just like you're not the only comedian.
That's right. All right, we'll introduce you to our guest here momentarily after we remind you of something very important, folks, and that is to go to phoneboothfighting.com. Why would you do that? Well, first off, brand new merchandise. Let me show what we got for the ladies. We got the new Phone Booth Fighting ladies tees in. The girls have been requesting this for a long time now, Frank. It's been a boys club over there at the official merch store, and now the ladies have broken the gender barrier at phoneboothfighting.com, and then we have this limited edition black on black crime version. Here, I just did a limited run of these, so if you want one of these, phoneboothfighting.com. Also, our Amazon banner is there. If you're going to do your shopping on Amazon, please go to phoneboothfighting.com and click through that banner. Why, Frank?
Because 10% of everything that you do goes back to us, goes back to our show, and helps us out, and it is of no extra cost to you.
That's right. Do your Amazon shopping by going to phoneboothfighting.com, click through that Amazon banner, and also our Patreon banner is right there. Check that out. Click on Patreon. Premium content from Phone Booth Fighting, stuff you don't get here on the twice weekly free podcast, and it is available for as little as $1 a month. Right now we've got our interview in the dressing room of Ralphie May. Went to his comedy show. We've got our interview in Billy Bob Thornton's hotel room. And probably the biggest item up there is the video, the only place you're going to see it, of our suspended live stage show in Las Vegas that we did with the American gangster Chael Sonnen. All of that is available by clicking on our Patreon banner at phoneboothfighting.com. All right, let's bring him on, Frank. He's a returning guest to the show, but he just keeps racking up the wins, and he did it again this past Saturday night in spectacular fashion at UFC 211. It is the Texecutioner checking in from my hometown of Fort Worth, Texas, James Vick. James, good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Living the dream. I'm on cloud nine right now.
All right. Now, listen, first of all, congratulations on that victory. And, there really wasn't a lot to say about it other than utter dominance from you. A first-round knockout of Marco Polo Reyes, 2 minutes and 39 seconds into the round. I know you've racked up some submissions, so it was kind of exciting to add a knockout to that resume as well, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my submissions are because I'm outstriking these guys, and
right.
I'm not going in there shooting double legs. They're trying to take me down. So I'll just make them pick their poison, and he just got caught with the stand-up game this time, so it worked out.
Yeah, actually, when you pulled and he missed, and that's actually a really good technique for a guy with your range. Is a guy that's able to keep his feet under him, but pull his head back out of range, but not so much that you're off balance, and then you come firing back with your length. That's very difficult to stand and box in front of somebody who does that. And after you tagged him and he went down, I actually thought you were just going to snatch up the Darce and choke him out. And, obviously in the heat of the moment, you just decided to, go for the TKO or, finish the KO. But that is reminiscent of how you're saying they always are, though. You hit people, stun them, and then you go for the submission. But in this situation, you just knew that you had the knockout. There was no feeling of going for anything to finish him off.
When I hit him, it was really the left hand that hurt him the worst. And then I felt his legs buckle, and then I threw the right hand and it dropped him. And it's funny you said that, because when I was in the hotel room, I was talking to my coach, Master Lud Irvin, and I said, dude, I've trained to attack the neck so much. I literally, when he had his arm up like that, I literally almost shot that Bravo choke. I almost shot that Darce. And I was like, I was like, thank God I didn't, but because, maybe would have given him a chance to recover. I don't think so, though. I think he was too bad. I really don't think I even needed to hit him at all after he hit the ground. But, obviously you have to do what you have to do. But it's funny you said that because I definitely thought about shooting that for 100%.
Now let's talk about what you did after the fight. Because if you recall, Frank, when James last joined us on the Phone Booth Fighting, he was fiery. Remember, he was talking about, hey, it's time to start promoting me, and we talked about that. I know you talked to him about the importance of being the squeaky wheel. And, man, Saturday night, James, you were in rare form. You got that mic. You said, listen, what was your line? There's guys who are 2-2 that they're flying out here to sit cage side. I'm 12-1. It's time
on the UFC.
Yeah, it's time to start promoting me, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Once again, I got to thank you, Frank. I listened to your advice, and honest to God, not even just trying to flatter you, it's been in my head. It has. When you get the mic, you say what you want to say.
Yeah.
And luckily, the reporters didn't, even after when I went to the back and stuff, they didn't ask me a bunch of dumb questions because I was going to misdirect it and say what I wanted to say, just like you told me.
Yeah. We drilled it. Yeah. We drilled that.
Take over
right?
and do what you and say what you want to say.
We did drill it. We did drill it. No, but seriously, it's been on my mind hard. It honest to God has. So I appreciate that for real. But yeah, I just told them, how I felt, and just like I told y'all, it's just they're flying dudes out with 2-2 records, and paying them to 500 records, paying them to be in the crowd, doing Metro PCS appearances, or girls as well. I understand the girls division is different, but still, people with losing records in the UFC are getting flown out, getting paid to do these guest appearances and stuff, and I'm over here half the time until this last year and a half. I worked a full-time job in the UFC off and on,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm winning, and it's not enough, obviously. So apparently, like I talked to y'all before about, I wasn't delusional about my skill set when I first got in the UFC either. I had been training maybe 10 years less than some of these guys have been. They just have so much more experience than me. So maybe I wasn't ready for those top guys. But I've trained so much harder than everyone. I've grown my skill set so high now that I know I'm ready for anybody. So I feel like now is the time to be vocal, and it is time to, be the squeaky wheel, as y'all say, and it's helped a lot. I'm getting, a lot of attention, and I talked to the UFC PR lady, the new lady, Leanne Breckenridge, I believe her name is. Talked to her. She's going to set me up with some stuff this weekend at the Fighter Conference with WME, and she's going to fly me out to a couple events, she said, and then I also have a meeting with Dana White this weekend to negotiate a new deal. So the sky's high for me right now.
Yeah, and you're doing a good job of just being yourself. And that's the thing I've always thought about guys going out there. Like, obviously, you're not always flip switch ready to go, fight mode, but that part of your personality, don't hide it. I've seen too many fighters that try to hide things or try to create stuff, and it comes off. I mean, like most recently, Daniel Cormier trying to play the villain, it comes off rough. And I think you're doing a perfect job of being who you are, a very, confident young guy that's out there and wants to take what's his and take it as your attitude. So that's, I think it comes off very genuine, and I think it's good for everybody.
I agree with that too. And obviously, James, you had to notice how the crowd responded. I mean, I think the crowd responded to your genuine enthusiasm. It didn't sound like real. It didn't sound like you were whining. It sounded like you were you know what it sounded like to me? It sounded like you were making a promise to the fans. It's kind of like, I promise if you'll put a spotlight on me, I'll keep performing. And I think when fans hear that, it's kind of like they invest in that along with you. They want to kind of take that ride with you and start hyping you the same way you're hyping yourself.
Yeah, I've earned it. It's not like I'm sitting here 1-1 or 2-0 in the UFC. I was 5-0 in the UFC before I lost. And then the dude I lost to ended up being ranked like number 6 in the world, And he, to me, Beneil was realistically just beating the number 2 or 3 ranked guy, Barboza. He was winning that fight. He got caught, and he kept going for some takedowns that, I don't think was, a smart move on his part because they were, obviously reaching takedowns, but he was winning that fight. And to me, like I said, I just got caught, and I didn't change anything after my camp. A lot of these guys are oh, well, what did you do different? I didn't do anything different. You know, my system has worked, or I wouldn't have the record I have just because I had one loss. And to me, that was more of what he did wrong, right than what I did wrong. And I didn't change anything. And I came back and started winning again. Now I've won 2 in a row. And I think that it's definitely time for them to start pushing me. And I'm gonna have a serious talk with Dana this weekend, because I think that I'm ready for the best fighters in the world. Like, I mean, Frank, you're an expert analyst. You know, you've been doing this stuff for years in the WCF. How do you think I match up against these top guys? Like, I think I would whip the shit out of Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier both. I think I'm a stylistic nightmare for those guys.
I agree with you.
Especially someone like Eddie Alvarez. He's shorter. If he tries to take me down, first of all, he can't get me down, or I'll get up within 5 seconds, or I'll catch his neck and put him out of there.
Yeah, you can't just shoot on you freely. There's always a threat of a submission down there.
And none of these guys can hold me down either. I'm a 6'3" guy. None of them have been able to hold me down.
No,
I've had, if you count my amateur and pro and Ultimate Fighter fights combined, I've had 25 MMA fights, and I've been on my back maybe 5 minutes of the whole 25 fights. No one holds me down. When I get my back on the cage, I don't get held down. I get up.
No, and that's actually a difficult skill set for someone of your height to actually have. You being 6'3" makes that actually, I feel, in my opinion, makes it hard. Shorter guys have shorter levers, and it's easier to belly down and get up. You know, if you watch college wrestling, guys that have a better stand-up are usually shorter and more compact. It's harder to hold down that bowling ball type of guy. Usually, a tall guy like you, hitting singles and stuff is difficult to take you down. You see it with John, trying to elevate and lift up your center of gravity, and you still have 1 foot on the ground. You're a good scrambler, a really good athlete. So the fact that you have that skill set that you can submit people, and you're very good at the scramble, getting up, I agree with you. I think that you are somebody that a lot of the guys that are now ranked in the top 5 would probably look to avoid, because you are extremely dangerous. You're extremely tall, great athlete, and have a lot of attributes, and a hard worker. And the UFC has yet to really put a lot of behind you as far as name recognition. So beating you might not help them out too much, but there's a huge chance they could lose to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why they're choosing not to fight me.
Absolutely.
Like I said in the interview, all of these top 15 guys, they want us killers on the outside to fight each other, so they don't have to fight us.
That's smart exactly on their part. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They'd rather you knock each other off.
That's why I really respect Beneil Dariush. I give him the utmost respect, not because he beat me, but because he actually took the fight with me. And then he turned around after me and he fought that Russian dude, Rashid Magomedov, who would also give tons of these guys in the top 10 fits. And he's the only guy that's in the top 10 that's willing to fight these guys outside of it. And I understand, you know, they feel like they've earned their spot to be there, but at some point, I mean, somebody's got to get a chance here. You know, when I'm 7-1, it's not like I'm 2-0 asking to fight a top 5, top 10 guy. You know.
Well, you keep doing what you're doing, and you won't be able to be ignored. A guy who all of a sudden is now 9-1 and who's making noise and talking, they're not going to be able to tell. They're going to walk into all these interviews, and your name's going to get brought up. You just have to do what you continue to do and keep winning fights in the manner that you're winning them. And the MMA fans and the journalists, they'll make sure that they have to accept fights from you. They'll make it blaringly obvious that people are ducking you. And then that's how somebody like you, who's up and coming, who people want to avoid, is going to get your shot.
The other thing that you did, James, was you called out specific people in the post-fight interview. I mean, you just mentioned Alvarez and Poirier. They were also fighting on the card, but you specifically referenced you'd like the winner of the Kevin Lee Michael Chiesa fight that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. That makes a lot of sense. You've got history with Chiesa. You fought him on The Ultimate Fighter, and then also with Kevin Lee. I mean, that guy is doing, he's a good talker himself. He's good at promoting fights. So I'd say either way, you'd probably come out with a winner there, because you got a storyline with Chiesa, or you got a guy who I think will definitely help you hype a fight in Lee if he were to win that. Yeah,
and I got dirt on Kevin Lee too, so it's even better than that. Basically, I knew he was going to ask, so I'll tell you. He turned down a fight with me last year. And he's going to deny that, but I have text messages from Joe Silva that proves otherwise. And so if the time comes and he starts, popping his mouth off and saying I'm full of shit and lying, then I'll go ahead and expose him on the internet about that shit as well. But he turned it down, and I have text messages from Joe Silva with his camp. This is all premeditated, guys. I've been planning this for months.
Listen to
I've been planning this for months.
Do tell. Okay, so you've got the documents. As Alex Jones would say, he's got the documents. He's got the
Yeah, I
documents.
mean, I have text messages from Joe Silva where he basically, his camp basically said that they didn't want to take the fight with me. It was when I was supposed to fight Evan Dunham, and Evan Dunham pulled out of the fight, and they offered me a couple opponents, and I said, okay, I'll take Kevin Lee. Let's see if he's available. And he couldn't get back to me for a couple of days because he said his coach was in Holland at the UFC Rotterdam event. And then he messaged back and he said that they said they didn't want to take the fight with such a tall opponent on short notice.
Wow.
And then I said, okay, I'll fight Beneil Dariush then. I'll take the Dariush fight. And then that's how we got the fight.
All right, I like the sound of this. Wait, forget we're gonna have to call in James Vick, James Comey. It's like he's got the secret FBI memo that's gonna expose everything.
You know what's funny is I had that a year ago, but I was waiting until he broke into the top 15 to get it. To say that. And like I said, I haven't even really said that. I may have said that in maybe one or two other interviews. I'm not even going to make a big deal out of it unless he starts like running his mouth, acting like he. But I did see him, after he beat Jake Matthews, and then he beat that Russian guy. He was all talking about how he's the most avoided fighter in the division, and people were ducking him. I was just sitting at home laughing because I know he for a fact he turned down a fight with me. And then all of a sudden I was waiting for him to break into the top echelon of fighters, and he did his part. So now I'll take that fight if he wins, or I'll take that rematch with Chiesa, which I've always wanted.
Well, let me just say, after watching their dust-up at the press conference the other day, the thing that bothered me about it was it's like they pulled the trigger on it too quick, because all I was able to determine from their scuffle was that Michael Chiesa was mad that Kevin Lee brought up the fact that Michael Chiesa's mom has gotten tickets to the fight. That doesn't make any sense. I think there was something else to it, and he didn't. See, you got to let it, just like you've been drilling this thing, wait until for the counterpunch. See, I don't know how to explain counterpunching to you, but the verbal aspect of counterpunching, wait until he gets the insult out before you charge toward him, you see? You got to wait for that.
I agree. I didn't actually get to watch the thing because I was backstage as the press conference was going on, because it was right before the weigh-ins.
Oh yeah.
So I haven't even got a chance to go back and watch it. I just saw the highlights of him running at him and him throwing a punch and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you'll see what I mean when you see it. It was a tad confusing. Well, listen, this is very exciting, and like I said, I think the best thing, it's kind of a two-step process, Frank. It's like, because you and I have talked about this on the show. It's like, on the one hand, everybody needs to be pleading their own case and talking, but then the next level of that is, okay, but if they do it, does it sound manufactured? And I think you're hitting a sweet spot with this, James, because I think it sounds genuine, and it's enthusiasm. And I think about fighters over the years who I always used to think this way about, give you an example, I always used to think this way about Tony Ferguson. I've interviewed Tony Ferguson a dozen times. And every time you did an interview with him, he always made you feel like his fight was going to be the most important fight on the card. And, of course, now he's legit, main event, co-main event status. But as he was working his way up, every time I got done interviewing that guy, and he might be one of 6 fighters I'd interviewed that week, I'd get, turn the mic off and think, boy, now I can't wait to see that fight. He's convinced me that is a very, very important fight. And I think you're on the road to doing that, and that's how you break out, Sure. Yeah. Well, James, tell everybody how they can follow the Texecutioner. Let's get everybody hooked up with you on social media who's not already there.
Social media, my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are all the same, James Vick MMA.
Okay, all right, that's it. And then what's the plan? So you're talking to UFC, you're making sure they're out there pushing you. I think that Chiesa Lee fight is only like a couple of weeks away. I don't have the calendar right in front of me, but it's not very far off, right?
It's the 25th of June, and I told them I'm keeping my weight down, and if one of them get injured, I'll step in and take that fight.
There you go. What about the chances of being there? Is there any chance you can make that fight?
Yeah, actually, the lady, Leanne, told me that she's going to fly me out to do an appearance there, so she already hooked that up for me.
Okay, this is working out already. He's pointing out the fact that, hey, I should be cage side, and you know what? They're going to put the camera on you, and no matter what the outcome of the fight is, and then you're gonna call for the winner. Well done. I mean, you're doing all the heavy lifting, but I'd like to think, Frank, that in some small way, by helping to push this James Vick hype train here. That we're giving it our own little bit of steam, right?
A little bit of push.
We're both officially on this hype train, right?
I am 100%. Yes.
All right, James, we're on board.
Appreciate it, guys. I have one more question.
Oh, yes.
Frank, you have any last minute advice for me in my negotiations with Dana?
You know what? Don't undervalue what you're worth. And it doesn't sound like that's not what you're going to do anyways.
Yeah, not at all.
That's a huge tactic that they're going to always employ, is that you are not worth what you think you're worth. That, you haven't done this or you're not did that. No one knows who you are. And they're going to give every reason why in the world why you only get paid a certain amount of money. And you have to come out there and actually know what you're worth, and not just have a feeling of bravado, but bring out the fact that, like, look, my name, what I'm doing, social media, my recognition with ticket sales, those type of factors, and what you're doing, and then use comparisons with other guys, because you obviously can see what they're making. Other guys that are 7-1 right now, and look at them. What are they getting paid? How come you're not getting paid the same, if not more?
Yes, sir. I've been doing that. That's just, I guess, reassuring what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, no, exactly. So don't forget your worth. You know what I mean? Don't let them sit there and go, you're not, no one's doing you a favor. If that was the case, then why don't they let you go, and then you can go fight for Bellator or World Series of Fighting or something else. But that's not the case. They're keeping you under contract because you're worth something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, James, it's always good to visit with you, and it's exciting to watch your progress here, and obviously it's just bigger and better things ahead. So I would just say this, just promise us that you will keep coming on the show, yes, that you won't start getting busy and unavailable and all that sort of thing once you're elevated to all those main cards.
Nah, of course. Guarantee, you got my word, guys.
Well, if he ends up winning the title, he'd be the first guy that we've actually talked to from pretty much, not the complete beginning. He already had 6, but someone who was on prelims, worked their way all the way up to the main card.
That's true. That's true.
So when I win the title, Frank, not if, it's when. Within the next 2 years, I'm going to win it.
All right. Well, we want to claim you as wrong. And then the other thing is, too, next time you're in Las Vegas, it's Frank's house, so I'm going to go ahead and invite you over.
Nice.
It's a good call.
Yeah, next time.
Okay, I'm going to be there this weekend, guys. I'm going to be there this weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Hit me up when you're here this weekend, and we'll have you stop by we've got this new studio built out in Frank's home, so we'll get you to stop by.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, guys.
There goes James Vick, the Texecutioner. Thanks, James, for joining us. I like that guy. He's a good guy.
Oh, awesome.
He's good. I've been thinking I met him when he was on The Ultimate Fighter, and I remembered him because he's from my hometown and all that sort of thing. And he was kind of an unheralded guy. He was I think he won some Golden Gloves competitions and things like that. But as the reputations of those MMA fighters that season went, he was the one who, you can always tell the ones that they know the least about, because when they give you the promo packet, the ones that have the shortest paragraphs, on them or whatever. So he was kind of that guy, and then he kept working his way through the tournament and upsetting opponents, and he got all the way to the semifinal round, and that's where Chiesa beat him.
You know what I think, honestly, and it's funny because different podcasts I listen to one, give a shout out to Freakonomics, as far as the technique or the recipe for success. It was a self-improvement month they were doing. And one of the factors they said that was most important was basically genuinely liking and having enthusiasm for what you do. If you want to be good at something, you have to actually like what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And that sounds kind of dumb, like, well, of course, but there's a lot of people that I think do things that don't truly love what they're doing, but they do it because they have an agenda. Yeah. And, now fighters are on television, making a decent living. So I think that we're starting to get more of an influx of fighters that might not be fighting because they purely love fighting. And I think the reason why James is going to be so successful is that you can hear it exudes from every word that he says. He genuinely enjoys fighting. He enjoys trying to be, you know, the publicity aspect of it. Like, you know, I'm sure he wants to get paid and taken care of, but you can tell that that's not his primary agenda. It's not, well, you know, I'm doing this because I want to get paid. I'm doing this because I love it, and oh shit, I can get paid too. And I think that is a wonderful setup and strategy that I think that's going to carry him a long ways.
I agree. Let's talk about what happened on the rest of UFC 211. We'll work top down from the pay-per-view this past weekend. Stipe Miocic, Frank, defends the heavyweight title against Junior Dos Santos, knocks him out 2 minutes and 22 seconds into the first round. And you know what, Frank? Just like that, we are having a discussion about Stipe Miocic possibly being one of the greatest, no offense here. I think I'm out of striking distance. Possibly the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, because he is now on a 5-fight win streak.
All first round.
All first round KOs.
Well, it's longer than that. It's all 5 first round knockouts. But his knockout before Andre, I think he fought Hunt and TKO'd him in the fourth. So he's on a longer win streak than that.
Yeah. Well, it's actually it's a 5-fight win streak. But you're right. 4 of those have been in the first round.
I thought it was 5 and 6. My fault.
Yeah. No, you're right. Hunt was a 5th round knockout. Basically, ever since his loss to Dos Santos in their first fight back in 2014, he has KO'd the likes of Mark Hunt, Andre Arlovsky, Fabricio Verdum, Alistair Overeem, and now Junior Dos Santos avenging that loss.
I think there's really very little argument against it. Who in the heavyweight division has been that dominant as a champion? I think until Stipe, when's the last time any of us have defended the belt more than once?
Well, he's now tied the records twice, and so he's tied that. So with the next...
Was that Kane?
Was that Kane? Yeah, Kane, Travis.
Who Kane is considered one of the best heavyweights of, you know what I mean? Like, highly touted guy that I think that just injuries and the way he trains sidelined him. I would like to have seen Kane and Miocic actually fight each other now. But I think as far as, it comes down to numbers. You know, I think people sometimes confuse emotional attachment to guys, and, you know, he might not be, create that same awe or draw as maybe like an Alistair Overeem, who people really seem to emotionally get behind or against, or whatever the case may be. But as far as just numbers of what he's doing and who he's doing it against, how do you not say that he's one of the best, if not the best, heavyweight champion that we've ever had? Yeah.
And I'm going to be real interested to see now if I like the fact that he's not trying to be anything he's not. He's a genuinely nice guy.
He's just a fighter.
If you say anything about his personality, it's that he's actually just a little goofy, a little silly, you know, in a nice sort of endearing way. And of course, he's got the whole aspect of still being a full-time fireman that, you know, we were talking about that with Chael last week, that really kind of doesn't get talked enough about. And I just wonder now if, you know, if the MMA world was waiting for him to be something he wasn't, if now, because he's backed it up inside the octagon, if they will just decide to get behind what he actually is.
You know what? I really don't know, because look at the struggle Demetrius Johnson has had.
Yeah, I was just thinking about him, actually. Yeah,
I really feel that Miocic has become the heavyweight version of DJ, where you have a guy who's extremely talented, does everything. The minute that cage door shuts, he is the best fighter. But then when he comes out, you know, he's not in the newspaper. You know, Demetrius, when he's home, the most crazy thing he does is maybe share a beer at a barbecue, you know, and so, he plays on Twitch, you know, and then you have Miocic, who is a ferocious fighter, goes out there. That's pretty impressive that your heavyweight champ has 4 first-round knockouts over named competition. You have a K1, 2 K1 champions in it that he's knocked out. The former champion
Overeem and Hunt.
Yeah, and former champion of Verdum, you know, to take the belt. And Andre Arlovsky is a former UFC heavyweight champ. It's a star-studded cast of people that he's completely just dismantled. And it blows my mind that just shows you that to sell tickets And it's just a fact that we have to accept. It's more than just fighting. Because if that was the case, Demetrius Johnson, Miocic would be some of the highest pay-per-view sellers that we have in our business. Even John Jones. I mean, John only has one loss on his record, and it was a DQ. If you think about it, John has won 18, I think, of his fights in the UFC. He's 18-0, in my opinion. You know, I don't remember the exact number, but I know that it's, you know, it's up there. And again, it's like, you know, that's not the factor. You know, it's like there's like that X factor that like a Conor McGregor has or the Ronda Rousey had that seems to propel people over, and being a good fighter is important. You know, obviously if Conor wasn't able to win fights, if he got choked out every time, you know, then I don't think we would know his name. But there's just that, you know, that thing. And it's crazy that, you know, how someone like Miocic, who is done, I mean, like, what more do you want him to do? I mean, he just walked down Dos Santos and smashed him. When was the last time Dos Santos has been smashed like that? I cannot recall of somebody just just completely walking up on him. And Dos Santos knew it too. That was the crazy part. Like, Dos Santos is throwing leg kicks and trying to move back away and backpedal, and it was almost like he had no heart to even fight him either. Like, not that, you know, I'm taking away that Dos Santos has no heart. I'm just saying that his bravado that Dos Santos usually carries, that guy Miocic shut it down. I mean, I really thought that I was watching a nervous, scared Dos Santos fight. And I've never seen that before. Even when Dos Santos has been, you know, his two fights with Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez is really the only other. I mean, Alistair knocked him out. He caught him. But in that fight, it was a very kind of interesting cat and mouse game they were playing. I don't think Alistair was dominating Dos Santos. I mean, I was there live. He ran around, kicked him in the leg, moved around. It was kind of an unusual, one of the weirdest first rounds I've ever seen. And then, you know, Overeem hits hard, caught him with that left hook. But I've never seen Dos Santos look scared. Now, I've seen him manhandled like he was in his second and third fight by Cain, where Cain was able to grind him down and break him down. But initially, there was that fire and that fight in Dos Santos to like, you know, no, screw you. I draw the line here. We're going to battle. And then when I watched the fight with Miocic, I didn't see him draw that proverbial line in the sand going, you're not walking past this. It was like, oh, shit, let me kick him here. I mean, it looked like he was just scared, you know. I mean, on a guy that he's been 5 rounds with, there's an aura and a confidence now that Miocic has, and rightfully so, because he's backed it up. I think that he's going to be extremely difficult. Right now, if you told me, well, who could beat Miocic? The only person that right now in the heavyweight division comes to mind where I'm like, oh, okay, that guy actually is if we had a healthy back 5-year version of Cain Velasquez. The Cain Velasquez of 2011, I think would be an interesting matchup. A guy who could really take him down and grind him out. Let's see Miocic get up over and over again, and also a really good boxer that, you know, Cain was. I don't know who wins, but I'm saying that's the scenario, and we don't have that. Cain is probably getting ready to retire from what I hear through the grapevine, as far as many injuries as he has. His body just is, he trained too hard. He broke himself down too bad.
In the co-main event, Frank, speaking of dominance, the women's strawweight champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk defends her title in a contest that was not close against Jessica Andrade. 50-45 on 2 judges' scorecards, and one judge actually had a 10-8 round in there somewhere, 50-44, in a fight that it just wasn't close. And you know, Andrade was hanging in there. I mean, just as tough as they come, but it did appear to be just a stylistic problem, and probably also a speed differential that favored Jędrzejczyk.
Yeah, Jędrzejczyk just knows how to use the jab, throws a ton of leg kicks, and just uses angles and moves around. She's hard to trap, and you know, to Jessica's credit, I mean, she kept coming forward through a lot of barragement that would have shut down many other fighters. She was aggressive. She came in, but I just think that you're right. It's until she develops some kind of way to close the gap on Joanna. But, you know, Joanna's undefeated for a reason. And so it might be one of those things where, you know, she can't beat her, you know, unless she catches her with something. And, you know, we have seen Joanna get caught with stuff and kind of rocked, but then she instantly recovers and comes back and just beats the shit out of you. Just, you know, her jab, her height, her range, her footwork, her clinch, everything about her. I mean, until we really, honestly, the only way I can see Joanna losing at this point now is if one of the girls just is a phenomenal grappler and can somehow take her down and take her out of that element and grind her out. But right now, getting past that jab and then getting your legs beat up on your way in and her footwork and angles, that's a lot easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. I think it's nice, too, that, especially in the, I guess what appears to be now the post-Ronda Rousey era, that we've got, albeit in a different weight division, another dominant women's force, another champion that's like, who can defeat this person? That's a fun chase to have. I mean, it's whether they're guys or girls, it's a fun narrative to have when you have a division that's dominated that way. But it just it feels a little bit like, okay, in the void that Ronda left, we have another, world beater female to kind of
I don't know why the UFC,
hold up that way.
I mean, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I don't understand why they're not really just heralding her as the next or the new king of the female division.
Mm-hmm.
She's undefeated. It doesn't look likely like anybody's about to beat her anytime soon. I mean, Rose Namajunas is a pretty slick fighter. I don't see it happening, to be honest with you. Nothing to take away from Rose. I thought she had a great fight against Michelle, and she's a good warrior. But Joanna is, pretty girl. She's pleasant to look at. She can speak, fairly well, Mm-hmm. I don't understand why she's just not all over the place. Why she's not doing the Metro PCS commercials, and maybe she is, and I'm just not paying close enough attention. I mean, does she seem like she's getting the same marketing that Ronda got?
Well, no, and that's a pretty high bar to measure against. But even
half,
no, you're right. I mean, maybe it's coming. Maybe it's
when are you going to do it?
I
mean, talk about not nailing, striking while the fire is hot, right?
The time is now, as the UFC told us once upon a time. I agree. So hopefully we're going to be seeing a lot more of her at or near the top of future cards. The feature bout was one that I think you and I were both keenly interested in. Demian Maia. Mm-hmm. Unless you want to offer up any other names, I mean, a guy who right now amongst active UFC fighters probably has the claim to the best pound-for-pound jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Oh, 100%.
Nobody close.
I might even take away the pound-for-pound. I don't know if Fabricio really even wants to roll with Damian.
Well, you've rolled with him, and just said incredible stories about what that's like.
It sucked,
right? He defeated Jorge Masvidal via split decision, 29-28 on two judges' scorecards, 28-29 the other. I don't get that minority judge. Unfortunately, it didn't matter.
Right.
But it was one of those things, they're fighting in Dallas, and you're watching it, and you're thinking, oh, man, is there someone on this panel that just does not appreciate what's happening on the ground here? Because let me tell you, I mean, certainly props to Jorge Masvidal for hanging in there with him.
I really do. I mean, I've trained with Damian.
Yeah.
Major props to Jorge. He survived in areas that most people that are world-class black belts, when Damian gets there on them, and myself included, we don't survive that long. Mm-hmm. That blew my mind. I thought for sure, especially in the first round when he sunk in the body triangle, I'm like, this is done.
I'll tell you what it was. It was like the Matt Brown blueprint minus the finish. Yeah. If you remember the way that Damian, because it was 3 rounds, and it's the exact same round repeated 3 times over. It's 2 phases. It's how long can I stand with Damian Maia?
Which he did a pretty good job in the second round of avoiding Damian. I thought almost half the round before he got
right. And I think that was probably the round he was given on the judge's scorecard. I didn't see the actual scorecard. I would assume
that's the only round I can think of.
Yeah, but it was the blueprint in terms of how long can I keep it standing, and then once he gets me down, can I survive the round? And Brown was eventually submitted doing that, and Masvidal took it to decision.
Yeah, I was extremely impressed with Masvidal. I mean, really a huge moral victory to fight Damian on the ground round after round and not be submitted. I mean, really it is. I mean, I'm not I know as a fighter, Masvidal's like, well, screw that. You still lost. I know that it's still upsetting, but I mean, just the fact that where the fight took place, and not like I'm saying that, well, you lost a decision to him, good for you. I'm saying that you got taken down and he was able to get great positions on you all 3 rounds and you survived. And that's an incredible feat for Masvidal.
Yeah, I agree. And, I don't apologize for enjoying watching Demian Maia work. He's going to get a UFC title shot now against Tyron Woodley. He's had a claim to one for some time now, but we got Dana White on camera, given the verbal affirmation that you've got the next shot. And I understand that maybe everybody doesn't know what they're looking at when they're watching Demian Maia do what he does. But, Travis and I we went and watched the fights together. And I was saying to him, I think part of appreciating Maia is knowing what his opponents normally look like, so you can appreciate what they don't look like on the night they're fighting Maia. If you don't know and I get why that might be a problem to the casual fan, because the casual fan might not have seen Jorge Masvidal's last half dozen fights or whatever. They might look at it and go, well, I think he's that good, but they don't realize, right? So if you've seen those past handful of performances from the opponent, and then you're watching it going, man, he makes the guy look like not anywhere near the fighter he normally is.
Yeah, and he doesn't do spectacular things.
Yeah.
Demian, like when you're watching him, I think that anybody that has a blue belt, purple belt in jiu-jitsu is understanding, he's securing the leg, he's taking him down, he's controlling the hips, he's controlling the hands. You can walk through. It's not like he's doing crazy athletic submissions where you're like, well, shit, that'd be nice, but I can't put my leg behind my head, so I can't pull that off. Everything that Demian does, and that's why I think I'm such a fan of his style, because it's one of those things where, you look at some guys, like having a jab like John Jones. Well, if you don't have an 84-inch reach, you're probably not going to have the same jab. Just some things you can't do. The footwork of Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius works hard, but he's also an extremely gifted athlete that's phenomenally fast. I mean, he's fast for even other guys that fight at flyweight. Whereas Demian, there's nothing physically really spectacular about him. And I've said that over and over. And if we all played a pickup game of basketball, I might pick him last as far as just pure athletic ability. But what he's done with that is pure technical appreciation of hard work. He's just honed a skill set through repetition and through practice. And nothing really was just, well, that's easy for me to do. He worked for everything he has. So, I mean, really, he's like the poster boy for like, well, if you really want it bad enough, you could go acquire it and figure it out. You don't have to be born close to somewhere. There's certain things you're like, well, that guy had an advantage. And I pretty much say, other than being born in Brazil and being close to jiu-jitsu gyms, Demian doesn't have any advantages that got him farther along in this race besides his own mind.
Well, I think you put it succinctly back the last time we were talking about him. You were talking about training with him, with Demian Maia, and you said that you realized rolling with him that every time he was the study of patience, and that every time you gave him an inch and he took that inch, you realize that's an inch I'm never getting back.
Yes. Well, I mean, as people move, everybody makes slight little mistakes, right? Through every movement you do, it's not perfect, right? And then through those mistakes, as the opponent, you're constantly looking, and you're like water coming down through a rock. Like, oh, okay, you left your hand here, boom, I got it. All right, now I'm going to set up this series. I'm going to work off your wrist, but it's something that you possibly did and left the hole open for me. And then now all of a sudden you push your knee across, but now you didn't do it at the right angle. You push it low. Now I can stuff it down and maybe jump to the other side. And there's an attack series, but a lot of it is indicative of the fact that the other guy has to be making mistakes too. And that's why you have such a good match, is that I'm starting to pass. Maybe I don't have a proper angle of posture of head pressure, and now you're able to hook a foot in the butterfly, and now I have to respect it and then back into in front of you and can't pass, and you have this game. And then when I roll with Demian, it was very much, like I said, nothing he did was phenomenal. Like, oh shit, that's crazy. And I've rolled with Robert Dreisel, for example, who's done things where I'm like, that's crazy. How did you get your leg there? Or how did you do this? Wow, okay, well, you can do that, but I don't know if I can or the average person could ever do that, you know? Whereas with Damian, nothing was that way, but he was just flawless, like a diamond. There was no mistakes that he really ever made. So as I'm scrambling and trying to create openings, and especially my style of submissions, I need you to leave something hanging out. Like I need you to reach down and you know, I'll cause chaos, but through that chaos, I need you to make some kind of mistake, and those mistakes I'll capitalize on. And rolling with Damian, I was like, shit, man, this guy, no matter what I throw at him, he answers it appropriately and never is off balance, never overextended, never leaves a gap that I can get under, get through, get over. I'm like, this is a pain in the ass. And then while you're trying to create these openings and attack somebody, you inadvertently are creating openings and not being 100% structurally perfect in every position. And he's just like, it's like quicksand. He's just eating you up.
All that being said, what do you think happens when he fights Tyron Woodley?
I'm extremely interested in watching this fight. I think that that was a great indication of Jorge Masvidal is a very good stand-up artist. We saw what he was able to do against Cowboy. You know, the guy hits hard. He has good range. Tyrone is extremely explosive. But I think that the thing is that Damian has going for him. And I actually think that maybe Damian really, I'm kind of leaning towards Damian can pull this off because, obviously, we've seen how hard Tyrone hits. He's mashed people. I mean, Josh Koscheck, how many people have completely cold knocked out Robbie Lawler the way that he did. So, that factor happening, that's how Tyrone wins. But what other way can Tyrone win besides that? Whereas the onslaught of Damian, I think, is just menacing. And he doesn't need to rely upon something lining up or landing that shot. He'll create it to work, and he has 5 rounds to work with. And if he has a hard time taking down Tyrone, he'll pull guard and then sweep him like he saw that he did against Jorge. He's not afraid to fight off his back. And I think that, that's a tough fight because you're completely eliminating one weapon of Tyron Woodley. Tyrone is a very good wrestler too. He mixes it up well with his punches and his takedowns. And now it's like Tyrone's going to have to walk into this fight and be a pure boxer. And in fights, and I wonder, because in the Wonder Boy fight, we saw a guy that had a hard time taking Wonder Boy down. So we kind of saw what Woodley would look like in a pure striking match. And he's not very busy. I think he's used his wrestling to disguise his takedown or his strikes and back and forth, which I think, a Rashad Evans style. Like I really enjoy that style of fighting. I think it's extremely an intelligent, way to fight in MMA. But now Damian, he just brings that X factor. It's like, are you really going to shoot on me? Really? You're going to change levels and grab Damian and take him down. I'm better at jiu-jitsu than Tyrone Woodley will ever be, even if I stop training tomorrow. And if I fought Damian Maia, I am not shooting on him. I would not take him down. You would see a reminiscence of 2001 Chuck Liddell sprawl and brawl like a mofo, because I know what he's capable of on the ground. And if somebody who's in my weight class with my skill set thinks that, I don't know, that's scary for everybody else.
Well, it makes me want to see it.
Yeah,
I'm
me
looking
too.
forward to it. Also on the main card, featherweights, Frankie Edgar defeats Yair Rodriguez via doctor stoppage after the second round. Rodriguez's left eye just swelled completely shut. And, this is one of these fights. Again, Travis and I were talking before the fight started. It's like, Yair is definitely the future. He's got the flashy style. He's a lot of fun to watch. And with Edgar, not that, anybody was pushing him out the door, but this was a real sort of, if he even needed this, a reestablishing fight. I say that's probably the wrong term because he's still ranked right by the top of the division. But it's like that's him pretty single-handedly defeating a blue chip hot prospect here. So it was reminding us why Frankie Edgar is Frankie Edgar. I guess is what I'm saying.
He's still a superb fighter, and I think the only reason he has the loss now, the loss is against Jose Aldo is that Jose Aldo is extremely hard to take down. He doesn't throw, I think, the same kicks and angles that obviously that Yair does. And so when I was thinking about this fight occurring, I was like, well, if Frankie's able to take him down, Frankie wins. If Frankie can't take Yair down, Yair wins. I think because of his height, his reach, we're going to see almost a reminiscence of Frankie's last fight with Jose Aldo, where he just kept him on the outside, able to move around and pick him apart with his superior. Because Yair is much taller than Edgar. But the minute, in the first round he took him down, I'm like, all right, he's in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be extremely difficult to have, because in Edgar, you have a great grappler. I mean, he's a great striker on his feet. I really like how Edgar moves around. He has such a physical disadvantage. I mean, you can just see his height and reach difference. He really has to work hard for what he has. But when he gets on top of you, he smothers you, and now height doesn't matter, and his work ethic and rate is just really incredible. He's a nightmare to be taken down by. So even if him and Jose have fought again, if he's able to get Jose down, then he wins the fight. That's kind of like the factor, I think, that because even if he can get him down for a round or two and beat him up, then when he gets up, his cardio just on his feet will make his stand-up that much more incredible. Then Jose gets a little bit more tired, can't throw the jab and keep him behind it as well. His shoulders are pumped up. But if you can keep Frankie Edgar from taking you down for 5 rounds or 3 rounds over the distance of the fight, I think that's the only chance you have of beating him.
Frankie Edgar really needs Max Holloway to beat Jose Aldo at the next pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Because Edgar is, he is in that Miesha Tate glass ceiling position where he's still right there ranked as a top contender. He's, could easily make a claim that, he's in that top 5 title consideration. But
his only losses to Jose, right?
But he lost to at 45, Of course, Benson Henderson. But yes, at 45. But the thing about that is that when you lose to the champ twice, not that you can't fight him a third time, it just makes it hard to make that case. And if Holloway can beat Aldo and take that featherweight title off of him, it'll break the thing wide open.
Yeah, and it really sucks the way it worked, too, because his first fight, I thought there was a pretty strong argument that Edgar beat Aldo.
Yeah.
But in the second fight, it wasn't nowhere near as controversial. I don't think anybody really felt that Edgar possibly won that fight. Jose that was one of the best Jose's I've seen in years. So he handily won the second fight. So kind of erases any doubts you had on the first one, and it just makes it difficult for him.
Middleweight David Branch takes a split decision over Krzysztof Jotko, and Branch is a guy, if you don't recognize him in the UFC, he has been busy over at World Series of Fighting the last couple of years, being their 2-division champion over there. They're middleweight and light heavyweight champion, and Branch takes a split decision, 29-28 across the cards. He's a nice addition to the middleweight rankings. It's not one of these things where just because he was champion in another organization, he's immediately in title talks, over in the UFC's middleweight division, but a nice solid addition, because especially for the kind, not to I don't have matches to make for him right off the top of my head, but I think he's one of those guys that's good for whenever you're a top 10 middleweight that's maybe on a bit of you've fallen out of the top 5, whatever, maybe you lost your title shot, something like that. He's a good test. I mean, he's still a champion from another organization that, definitely a barometer. I'm not saying that Branch can't make his own title run himself, but it's just he brings an instant pedigree, I guess.
Solid fighter.
Yeah. The featured bouts on the prelims was one that was one of the ones I was looking the most forward to, and then it had the most controversy of the night. Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier ends in a no contest 4 minutes and 12 seconds into the second round. Eddie Alvarez lands illegal knees. They are ruled accidental by referee Herb Dean, so the fight is called a no contest. Now, I saw Poirier is appealing this really to get paid because he wants the win bonus. He said it was nothing against Eddie Alvarez. He doesn't think it was intentional, but it's a financial issue for him. But I was going to ask you your thoughts about this, because the thing about accident, and I've always been a little confused about this, even going back to the boxing days of accidental headbutts. You know,
but that makes sense to me on the headbutt because you're obviously not using the headbutt as a weapon ever.
Yeah.
Right. But you lean forward. You're constantly jockeying for position. So the unintentional headbutt could occur. So that's why I think it's deemed that. Whereas a knee to the head is a technique that we use, but then there are certain times where it's illegal. So if the person puts his knee down, how do you determine that it was an accident that I didn't realize your knee was down? Like, so I don't know how Herb made that distinction. I don't know if you've heard how he did. Like, did he say that I can tell that Eddie couldn't see the knee on the ground?
He said that, I didn't see his specific explanation of it, but to me, and maybe this is just me, it's usually more definitive when, I guess to my eye, when a fighter has a knee on the ground versus the hand game, because the hands come up and down a lot.
And also, too, then at that point, if I have you in a front headlock, it's kind of hard for me to see exactly where your hands are. So that could come into play where, like, well, I looked down and it looked like his hand was just on his fingertips, where fingertips now is a legal shot to the head. Whereas, now maybe argue that, well, no, his hand was flat. No shit. From my point of view, accident. I don't know. But the knee down, I mean, you've been fighting, I've fought for many years. When I grab someone, I can close my eyes. And if you take a knee, I instinctively feel that you've level changed. And I know that your hips are low and that you're on a knee or two. And so that one, again, like I was just curious. And whenever I run into Herb again, the different events, I would like to ask him, like, how do you determine what's an accident and what's not an accident in that situation? Like, it's kind of like the kick to the groin. If you can sit there and go, well, I was throwing and the guy switched stance, so I thought it was going to be an outside leg attack. He stepped backwards and then I kicked him in the groin. I think those are real evident that, it was an accidental groin attack. But the knee to the head part, I don't know how that's an accident. It's like, well, you don't think he meant to throw the knee? Or he didn't mean to throw it to the head? Or he thought the opponent was up, but then it wasn't a very close call on if he was up or not. So that's why, and Herb is a phenomenal referee. I'm not questioning his, I'm pretty sure if we can get a hold of him and talk to him about it, he'd have a phenomenal explanation about it. But
yeah,
I am curious because that's the part that I'm also kind of like, well, what differentiates between me doing it on accident and me doing it on purpose?
Yeah. What if, there's all this talk about instant replay and how instant replay would help things, but you know what? Nobody's bringing up
in this situation.
No, it wouldn't have,
because we all know that the knee was on the ground. It wasn't like it was a
that's why I have a suggestion that nobody's talking about. What if we polygraph guys? Okay, now follow me on this. So there'd be a stop in the action. And then you just you'd hook Alvarez up real quick, and I think you have to ask him a couple of control questions like, is it 2017?
Can you imagine you screw with somebody? Have you always been faithful to your wife?
Or she runs up, right? Yeah. That's the thing. She runs
Where were you 2 weeks ago on Wednesday when you said you were at the gym?
Well, the good news,
we might see fights end in a little bit different manner.
Yeah, the good news is that Frank is not disqualified. The bad news is it's going to be a long car ride home.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, that was a bummer, and hopefully we'll get to see those two guys fight again, because that one looked great on paper, and up to that point, it was definitely delivering. All right, a guy that boy, only hardcores at this point are going to know, but I've got my eye on. What did they call this guy? Mississippi Mean is what they called him. Jason Knight. He is a featherweight fighter that former UFC great Alan Belcher is training. He defeats Chaz Skelly via TKO, 39 seconds in the third round. But this guy's jiu-jitsu, Frank, is his transitions are really a lot of fun to watch. And this isn't the first time that I've noticed him. And he's got a big mouth on him, and I mean that in the best possible way. I mean, much like we're talking about James earlier. I mean, he's a guy who said, takes a microphone and immediately lets everybody know what he wants. He went ahead and booked himself on Joe Rogan's podcast. in the post-fight interview. That was the first thing he said was, "Why haven't I been on the podcast? I need to be on the podcast." And then, where's my next opponent? So this guy definitely has my attention, Jason Knight, and a pretty impressive victory for him. Chase Sherman and Rashad Coulter, heavyweights, Frank, your division. And, boy, this was a rock'em sock'em fight. Chase Sherman ends up KOing Rashad Coulter in the second round, 3 minutes, 36 seconds into the second round, and had really beaten the hell out of Rashad Coulter's front leg. Coulter was a Dallas native. He was a guy who took this fight on short notice. He was a replacement opponent, and boy, this was one of those fights where it's kind of like the definition of a guy comes in with nothing to lose, and even though he loses a fight, you know what he probably did win is a second shot in the UFC. One of these where, I mean, the fans loved it. Everybody's into it. And, one of those situations where you just show up and the matchmaker maybe barely knew your name before that night, but he definitely remembered it even in a defeat.
No, sometimes it seems like that can skyrocket your property much quicker than just a win is a dominant, or a very impressive back and forth brawl. People like wars, and they see you're that kind of guy that brings that, even though, he got beat up pretty bad in the first round, that lead leg, he was hopping around, to come back and actually rock him and almost it looked like he was going to win, again. And then, obviously succumbed, back to the onslaught, but that back and forth drama, it causes people to take note.
One other fight I wanted to mention, and this was the feature fight on the Fight Pass prelims, a women's strawweight fight between Courtney Casey and Jessica Aguilar. Casey wins this fight 30-27 across the scorecards. But what was interesting about this fight was she was throwing Casey spent a lot of time on her back. She's a very tall, lengthy fighter for that division. She was throwing so many up kicks. Joe Rogan was talking about her up kick game. Like, normally an up kick is just a thing you do for a few seconds until the action stops and they stand you up, right? Or somebody goes to the ground or whatever. This was actually like a phase of the fight. This was a component of the fight where it's like, if she doesn't knock out Aguilar with an up kick, I'm starting to watch this fight like the cumulative effects of her up kicks. Like, there were that many up kicks in the fight. It was just an unusual dynamic to a fight that we don't often see.
No, I mean, that's, again, going back, that's kind of the great thing about MMA is that so many things are still new. I mean, sometimes you see different styles in boxing that are not necessarily been done before, and that's a much more limited sport. You see that sometimes in wrestling and in judo, but now in MMA, there's so many facets that you see something that you didn't think you'd see before. I mean, we're talking about the oblique kick to the lead leg now, right? I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't really even a thing. And now it's a weapon that we see quite often. And it was interesting to see somebody attack from an area that, you're right, I've always kind of thought as an up kick is kind of an afterthought that, you kind of made a mistake, you stood up, you're not controlling my legs, and there it goes. Benson Henderson, Frankie Edgar, where I don't think Benson was trying to create that opportunity for that to occur, but saw the opportunity, goes, oh shit, there you go. Whereas, it looks like that's something that she practices readily.
The world has been turned upside down in the last week, and Frank and I are going to explain it all after we give you a quick word about what's going to keep you calm through Armageddon, and that is Earth's Brew. Go beyond alcohol to a state of relaxation and mental clarity. Get in the present with the 100% 100% plant-based Earth's Brew. For a vegan like me, that is key. A plant-based taste of nirvana. If you watch us on YouTube, you always see the box of Earth's Brew right here on the table, and it comes in a convenient little packet, which I'm holding up right there. You mix that up in about 6 or 8 ounces of water and relax and enjoy. No sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and I know that's important for you, Frank, because now you're in training. We talked about the fact on the last show we had Chael Sonnen come on, talk about the fact you guys are grappling each other at Abu Dhabi, and always training for the next fight and that sort of thing. So I know we've talked about that before, but a low calorie count is always a good thing for you. And I believe that's just right about 15 calories per serving.
Yeah, it's a huge bonus. And bottom line, if you want to give it a shot, the promo code Phone Booth for 10% of all your orders, you can check it out now at earthbrew.com.
Earthbrew.com, 10% off exclusively for Phone Booth Fighting listeners. Oh, boy, Frank, where do we start? Let me pick up Thule. Let me do that first. That'll calm me down. Come here, Thule. Thule's like a therapy dog for this next segment. I will pet her, and it will keep me calm.
You can't be too angry while you're holding Thule.
No. So let's talk about, let's just put this in perspective. 1 week ago, as we sit here and tape tonight, we had our buddy Michael, one of our listeners from Dallas, go out, shoot guns with us. And we were out there in the desert firing our weaponry when I announced that I had just been notified via message on my iPhone that Donald Trump had fired James Comey.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me, is that the craziest thing that's going to happen all week in the news? I would say it may be the craziest thing that's happened all month, if not, going on a year.
That was weird, because when you told me that, we're out there shooting.
Yeah.
There's times people tell you things and you kind of stare at them for a second. Mm-hmm. You don't say no shit. You don't go really. You just kind of look at them for a minute. And I think I kind of nodded. I was trying to digest that concept that the president just fired Comey, the head of the FBI, during where he's investigating Flynn and other people around the campaign. And hasn't came out, I guess, officially. It never said that, yes, Donald Trump is specifically being investigated. But I feel that most people, or a lot of us, feel that he is there. I just, that the prosecutors are going through what evidence there is, and Trump is probably going to be on their radar.
Right. Looks bad.
Yeah, and I even asked you, I think my first question to you was like, can you do that? Is that legal? Can you, to me, that I would think that, because I realize that the FBI position is a 10-year position, with the theory or the idea that, okay, this isn't going to be a presidential thing. It's not. You're not supposed to be a Democratic FBI agent or head of the FBI. You're not a Republican. It's not like we're appointing supreme judges where they are either liberal, conservative. They have their party based, right?
Right.
And then we try to get this balance. Whereas the head of the FBI, I've always thought, was supposed to be outside of that. He's not supposed to be political. I'm not supposed to know whether he's a Republican or a Democrat. Mm-hmm. That he's supposed to be as unbiased as it's possible for a human to be, which, obviously it's not perfect, but the idea is that you don't have I've never heard that terminology before, that, that he's a conservative FBI, the head of the FBI is conservative. I'm like, I've never even heard that sentence ever told to me. So when you told me that he fired him during an investigation, that blew my mind. That's why I asked you, I'm like, can he do that just by himself, the president? Like, I would have thought that
completely legal
to fire somebody who's in charge of investigating anybody, that you would need Congress. I realize that the president appoints him, but then he's confirmed by Congress. I would think that you would need the Congress to eliminate him. In fact, if anything, at the end of all this, I think they need to change that to where the president, because think about it. What a conflict of interest in the future. Let's say it's not even up to speculation. Yes, that the president of the United States is under investigation by the FBI. He could just fire them. Mm-hmm. That's within his power, right? That seems like that wasn't a thought that, when we were making up our, it's one of those loopholes where I'm like, I think we need to figure that one out. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
That's a good point, and maybe it should be considered. It is a completely legal, looks bad, but it is a completely legal thing for him to do. Now, follow along, because we're going in order here. We're going in chronological order.
It gets worse.
Right, so that happens. There's some fallout. The Trump administration officials say, well, this didn't have anything to do with the Russian investigation. This was a recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General. He went to Trump, said, we should fire this guy. He's incompetent, and so Trump fired him.
Which I thought was a good ploy.
Sure.
How long had he been in office? 2 weeks?
Yeah, the assistant attorney general.
Right.
Yep, 2 weeks, deputy.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. It's like, all right, you can sit there and go, well, why didn't you do this before? I just got here, man.
New guy comes in, gives a review.
I'm going
Here's
through
my
everything.
assessment.
I'm cleaning
Right.
house. It's like anything else. You get
Right.
a new manager comes into work.
Okay.
You know, people might get fired. You
Yeah.
know, new hires come in. You know, there's a changing of the guard. So when the White House came out with that narrative, I thought, I was like, all right, you know, hey, you know what? It looks like shit. You know, I'm not going to lie. I don't think even the most staunch Trump supporter cannot say that it doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
And going real quick to this one. And again, everybody knows I'm not a Democrat, not a Republican. At times I've kind of related with libertarians, but I'm about as unparty affiliated and more so as the days increase, right? The whole thing, well, you guys said that he should have been fired when he did what he did with Comey, you know, to the Democrats. Like, well, we finally fired him. It's like, well, yeah, we thought that then, or the Democrats thought that then, but now it's your turn to be on the hot seat. So no, what was good for the goose is good for the gander. You didn't seem to have a problem with it when he kind of, you know, that probably didn't look right. And now he's saying it didn't look right. The way he handled, I mean, that's what he's saying he fired him for, was because the way he handled the Clinton emails. To bring that up again days before the election looked like shit. But, you know, so I get that you're right. There was probably call for bringing him up to, you know, some kind of responsibilities for his actions at that point. But now you are under investigation. And all of a sudden now it's conveniently for you're going to get rid of him?
Well, and then that narrative lasted until the next day. And that was when Trump gave an interview and said, you know, I was thinking about the Russia thing. And I was thinking that there's nothing to that. That's all nonsense, to paraphrase. And I fired him. So right there, he undercuts the whole narrative coming out of the White House. I mean, they had the whole thing positioned that this didn't have anything to do with Russia.
They took it off of him.
Right.
They said, no, he did it off of the recommendation of the deputy attorney.
It was pointed out that it's possible that Trump got bitter about the fact that he wasn't getting any credit for the firing. That it was like, you know what?
That's a joke, but there might be a lot of truth.
There could be some truth to that with him. So he says,
because he basically did that. He goes, nah, screw that.
I was going to fire him anyway. I was firing him anyway. Yeah, they made a recommendation, but trust me, he was dead man walking before they even said a word to me. Okay,
shit, you're right, man.
All right, so that happens. Then the very next day, Donald Trump invites the Russian officials, the ambassador and Kislyak, into the Oval Office with a Russian photographer where no American media was allowed. The Russian photographer takes photos and then distributes them through the Russian news agency, TASS. So we actually had to go to a Russian news agency to get pictures of what was happening in our own Oval Office. He meets those guys. That, again, bad optics, looked bad, got some heat for it. Yesterday, we find out that Donald Trump leaked to them the highest level of classified information that we have. I learned something. I mean, I knew there was top secret classified information. There's 4 levels, like there's 5 belts in jiu-jitsu. There's 4 levels of classified information. There's classified, secret, top secret, and then there's a level beyond top secret. It is the Amex black card of classified information, and it is called code word.
Yep.
And that's what this information was. This information was so highly sensitive that even for them to talk about it, you hear this term about SCIFs, this little like soundproof enclosure they can go into, kind of like our phone booth fighting bunker here, where they don't even whisper in each other's ears about this. Like, if they're going to talk about this stuff, it's like, oh, got to go in the cone of silence, got to go in the SCIF,
right,
even to utter anything about it.
And reason being is that if you read anything about this isn't just information that, well, now they have it, who cares? The problem with it is if our allies, who this information came from, if it gets back to ISIS what we know, they will be able to pinpoint who gave them that information. So essentially, from what I'm reading about this, you just outed spies, and you possibly just killed our allies that are undercover.
Yes, and it is since been reported that that ally was Israel, that they're the ones who gave us the information. And when an ally gives us information, they don't just give it to you and say, tell whoever you want. They actually, you're supposed to tell them if you're going to tell anybody else, for the very reason you just pointed out, that, there's no telling whose safety you're compromising. And not only that, but future access to intel. This all had to do with the report we saw a couple of months ago about ISIS trying to perfect putting bombs and laptops and how that was gonna work. And to give you an idea, CNN had the information. They knew that was the town that the information had originated from. They knew it, and when they went to, everybody thinks that the media just exposes whatever they hear. It's actually not true. There are plenty of cases where the media will go to, say, like the Trump administration, and as a matter of national security, they don't tell everything they know. They explain that there's this plot or whatever, but out of safety concerns, out of national security concerns, they don't say where the information came from. I'm talking about the media arm. So in this case, the media arm shows restraint where the actual president does not. He goes ahead and volunteers this information to the Russians, who have all kinds of conflicts of interest, because they could get passed to Iran. That could get passed to Assad in Syria,
who is Syria thing. We're
that's
not exactly
the guy
all
they're
lined up.
That's the guy they're backing. So that is yesterday. Now again, really bad. Doesn't just look bad, is bad. But
no, well, and actually, I was talking to Jennifer today at lunch after we went to the gym. We're sitting there eating, and I'm looking at my phone, just shaking my head like, holy shit, I'm reading this, reading that, And she's like, hey, we're here eating. Can you get off the phone? I'm like, babe, I'm sorry, but holy shit, what I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you realize that if anybody else would have done what he did, they're arrested for treason.
Yeah.
You're basically now, you're giving out information. That is people go to prison for years giving out top classified information.
He's the only person as president that could have done it and done it legally, because the president has the ability to declassify information at will. So if he says something that's classified, just by virtue of saying it, it is declassified, and that's the deal. So again, looks terrible, is terrible, wasn't illegal.
And this is where I got to start kind of like apologizing to you, because remember when I said, back a couple months ago, I'm like, let's try this out, man.
How bad could it be?
How bad could this be? And I was kind of like, I really, really, really disliked Hillary Clinton. And so I think I got kind of caught up with the I dislike you so much. I don't really care about this guy, but fuck, if he's the opposite, I'm going with him. You know what I mean? Like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I think was never truer words in how I felt during this last election. And so, but, we brought up what they could do, and I'm like, holy shit, he does have access to all our secrets. And he can just, I was reading that they're having issues with him when he's in, Key Largo or?
Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. That he's going over paperwork that should not be gone over amongst the average civilian, that he's sitting there at the breakfast, the cafe with this paperwork on the table. And then they keep saying hey, President Trump, you can't do that. We don't exactly know who they might just be, the average American citizen just walking around here, but these could be spies. They could be anything. Someone could inadvertently pick something up. There's a reason why we do this in an office where it's, we have security, there's no security here to that level.
That gets us to today. And today, it was reported that in February, Donald Trump asked then Director of the FBI, James Comey, to drop the investigation against then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, or actually the just fired security advisor Michael Flynn, that he had been in the Oval Office with Comey and with Vice President Pence and with Attorney General Sessions, who at that point had not recused himself from the Russia investigation, asked Sessions and Pence to leave the room and then said to Comey, you know, Flynn's a nice guy. You can see your way to dropping this investigation, can't you? You can go ahead and, I'm winking at you, you can go ahead and back off of this thing, right? Let's go ahead and drop it. That's a crime. If that happened, that is obstruction of justice. That's a crime. And you know what? Believe it or not, now we're talking about impeachment.
Yeah, no.
And this is something that
you said that could he make it to the end of his term, but you were right. When you sent me that text, like, shit, he might not make it to Christmas.
Now I'm wondering about, yeah, I mean, I thought that everything that hung in the balance was the midterms of 2018, because next year, if the Republicans lose the House, then he's lame duck at that point. And listen, here's what I think. This is just purely, you know, political strategy talking here. It's no secret, you know, guys like Paul Ryan are not fans of Donald Trump. But what they're looking at is they're going, okay, what can we get out of this guy policy-wise while he's still good to us? Let's get Obamacare repeal. Let's get tax reform. You know, they've got some things they want to get out of him before they cut him loose, you know. But the thing is, they're wondering now if they can even get to any of those things before he becomes way beyond a liability and just becomes straight up politically toxic. And here's the thing about impeachment. Impeachment is in no way ever good for the country. This goes way beyond my side, your side. No one should ever be hoping for or rooting for impeachment. And that's why it used to always get me so upset when I would see like bumper stickers, you know, that would say like, you know, impeach Bush or, you know, that kind of stuff, because this is something that up until Richard Nixon had only almost happened to Andrew Johnson, and it didn't quite happen to him. Now, Nixon resigned. He likely would have been impeached, but that was...
right, as of right now, we've never had a president...
well, Clinton.
Well, Clinton was...
See, the thing is...
That was weird. He got voted for the impeachment, but they didn't enact it, right?
But, he won in the Senate. See, impeachment is actually not the removal. It's the charges. So what happened was Clinton was impeached in the Senate, but he won the impeachment trial. Okay. So impeachment and removal are two different things. But yeah, until that had happened to Clinton.
So Donald Trump might just be able to write a book that he was fired.
Yeah, the art of the impeachment. It could
well, I
happen.
mean, you think about it. It's funny.
Yeah.
You know, that's his catchphrase. You're fired.
Yeah.
Like America's about to. I mean, if you know, they're going to have a hearing on this and they're going to call Comey up to testify, and it's not like the character of Trump is looking that awesome right now.
Right. And here's the other thing too. Not only will they have Comey testify, they will have Sessions testify. They'll have Mike Pence testify. And what they'll ask him is, on that day, were you in the Oval Office and then you were asked to leave?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, how are you? There's no way you're not going to, you know.
Yeah.
Come on.
So,
but, I mean, the good thing, though, and it's funny because I told Jennifer that, because Jennifer, you know, we were on the whole, a businessman can change things around. This would be a good thing. Mix it up. You know, let's get these career politicians out of there. I mean, you know, there was some upside that we thought we were seeing. And, you know, so she's like, well, what happens if we get rid of him? I'm like, well, actually, Pence, as far as a Republican goes, is pretty much your cookie cutter.
Oh, he's what Republicans would prefer. And I'm talking about
so I'm like,
party
it's really,
Republicans.
honestly, if you're a Republican right now, to lose Trump and have Pence take over, I think it's a bonus. I mean, I don't think we're going to have, I think it'll do better for the midterm elections. I think it's going to be a lot less chaotic.
Here's the problem with that, though. And now we're just, I mean, to get into like the strategy of it, what would it look like? That will be dependent on one very particular thing. And that is, how closely tied is Pence in reality to Trump? Because if Trump has to resign
Pence
or
left
is
the room,
impeached,
so that's already a good sign.
Yeah,
there.
well, and if he is in fact, you know, virtual or I should say relatively clean of all this,
Pence has been a lifelong military guy. I think he's
well, but what I'm saying is we just don't know what's happened behind the scenes.
No, I'm saying I'm thinking just from what I think I know of Pence, he seems like the guy is smart enough to know that when he sees Trump doing something he shouldn't be doing, he might go ahead and just like, I got to use the bathroom.
Seems
I'll be back.
like it.
You know what I mean?
Seems like it.
I don't think it didn't look like he argued about the fact of staying in the room with Comey. It's like, you're going to do some fucking diabolical underground shit. I'm out. You know what I mean?
Right. So, but then I would, and again, we're just speaking strategically, I would conceivably turn that around on you. There's a difference between being such a Boy Scout that you don't notice what's going on versus you're Joe Paterno when you're leaving the room because Jerry Sandusky's getting in the shower. You see what I mean? Like at some point,
But you gotta prove
actually
that I know.
knew what was right. And I think all of that will come out. Now, if you look at the historical example of this, look at Gerald Ford. Because when Nixon resigned, Ford, of course, becomes president. Ford pardoned Nixon. And see, once the president's out of office, you could be charged criminally.
Right.
And so there will be, if this actually happens, there will be a decision.
Well, then Ford lost the next election to
Yes,
Lyndon
he
Johnson,
did.
right?
No, to Carter.
Or Carter,
and,
Jimmy Carter.
And the reason that he lost it largely was exactly because of that. He pardoned him. So he had.
I think that Pence he needs to wash his hands.
That's what I was saying. It's gonna the litmus test will be: does Pence support Trump, or does Pence act like he didn't even know him? That would probably be the smart play.
Because I think if Pence sits down in his bedroom and gets upstairs in the mirror and goes, what would Trump do right now?
Right.
If my ass was on the line, would Trump extend it and take the chance of losing the next election and to save my ass? And I guarantee you that answer is pretty evident.
There's really one of two, and I just to put a fine point on the impeachment thing. I just want to be clear about this. That like I mean, in my life, I was technically alive when Nixon was resigned, but I was a kid, a baby. But in my lifetime, following politics my whole adult life and living through a lot of administrations that I did not support in the voting booth, I have never called for someone's impeachment because I recognize what a stain, what a blight it is on the country. So that's not something I would ever take very lightly. But I'll tell you this. I think it is becoming rapidly apparent that there is one of two, really only two possible scenarios here with Trump. Now, number one, it could be that, there's all this Russian dark money involved in what was up, and the thing is, it always comes back to the Russians. It always seems to have to do with the Russians, and that does look highly suspicious, and who knows, maybe we keep digging and we find out that he's doing all this by design because he owes them a lot of money or favors. But here's the best case scenario of those two things, and it's still not good. Maybe he just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Maybe it's that. Maybe this is, you wondered what it would look like if you took a real estate investment guy with no political experience and made him the president of the United States. Maybe you were wondering what that would look like. Well, this is it. And maybe he doesn't understand basic presidential principles, which aren't very basic to virtually anybody else in the world, which is what do you do when properly handling beyond top secret information? Because here's the thing, Frank, even if let's just say he had been a one-term senator, like Barack Obama, okay? Obama went into the Oval Office knowing reasonably what to do with sensitive information. Now, I'm sure he was coached up, too, after he got in the White House, but he was not a complete novice with it,
Well, and then I think it's more along also the lines that how before I said that, being a businessman would be a good idea for deals and negotiation. And now I realize that, no, you can't be the leader, the highest power, and business be your background. Because as the head of a business, there's really not a lot of checks and balances. As long as you're producing, your company's doing well.
That's right.
The CEO is untouchable. He can make calls. He can do what he wants. There's not a lot of checks and balances within a business. It's more around like a monarchy, I would think.
Absolutely. And yes.
And so whereas now
with
as
princes
a president,
and princesses and daughters and son-in-laws, yes,
I think that
exactly.
what Trump is struggling with right now is that he's not untouchable. You can't, that was very much of a businessman. Hey guys, leave the room. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a businessman's thought process. Like, hey, buddy, here, you and I on the side. You know, like, let's just let this go.
Yeah.
You know, like you know.
Or I'm going to fire somebody, and that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah.
Or that.
And going back to the fact that if he can be impeached, I think absolutely it's going to happen. It would blow my mind at this point if it doesn't occur, because I mean, we impeached Clinton for lying about getting a blowjob, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So essentially, what he did, get sucked off in the Oval Office, that's not illegal, right? The president.
The lying under oath was illegal.
That's what was illegal. So just the lying under oath. Well, what Trump's already done is illegal, and then he's going to go and lie about it, obviously to protect his own ass. So, I mean, talk about degrees of how bad what he's doing. I mean, unless he comes clean, but then the crime that he's being accused of is horrible. You know, I mean, as far as interfering with a federal investigation, used his power as the president to try to influence Comey to let shit go with Flynn.
And against the backdrop of counter-espionage. How about that? How about the fact that we're even just talking about it, whether or not that's ever even actually proven, that the president is not, properly properly stifled by the fact that, holy shit, my administration is being looked at as, part of an espionage investigation.
Yeah.
Like, that should be enough just to, have the needle scratch across the record and everybody
There's so many things that are crazy
stop.
about this. It's almost kind of like you can get overwhelmed with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like the
yes.
bad kid in class.
Yes.
Does so much fucked up shit. You're like, well, where do I begin?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, that's what it is. And almost like maybe you start to accept it. I mean, I know we're not.
It's
but
like a fatigue.
yeah, there's just so,
Yeah.
I mean, like you were
How
right.
long did it take us just to walk through the last 7 days? I mean, this is what, 30 minutes?
And we didn't even bring, I mean, there's other details of shit that he did that I would have thought would have been extremely bad. If you told me that Barack Obama pulled the FBI agent to the side, the head of the director of the FBI, and told him that he wanted a pledge of loyalty, that would have been some fucking huge news. That's like, oh my God. Like, I would have been like, are you serious? Can you do that? Is that not illegal? I mean, can you really influence the number one, the highest investigator on our foreign land? No, you can't do that. You can't ask someone to be loyal to you like that. I mean, he's supposed to be independent of everybody. And that's not even like something that's like, he did that. But that's not even like, just to give you an idea how bad the shit is, we're not talking about, that's not even a blip on the radar of the shit that's going on.
It really is. And, I know you've heard me say that, the problem, one of the problems with having the businessman be in charge of the government is that the government is not designed like a for-profit business. It's a nonprofit. And that's just a fundamental principle that I think precludes the businessman from being a well-qualified person to lead the country just on those merits alone. But I heard somebody say something in the last 48 hours. I wish I could remember who to attribute it to, but I'd not heard him talk before. But it furthered that point for me, and I thought this is a great way of putting it. This analyst said the problem is Donald Trump thinks he's the CEO of America, and he's not. We are the CEOs of America, and he is the employee. And he does not understand that.
No,
he does not. He has no concern about our performance review.
Yeah, it's I think there's been a couple of times over the last couple of months that especially since you're very liberal, I've really tried to take up the. Let me give the counterpoint. And this morning, I'm in bed after taking my nap, and I'm going through, and Jennifer walks in. She says, "What are you doing?" I'm trying to defend the guy. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I just don't want the show to all be bash on Trump. I think that we got to have some counterpoints,
right.
And everybody I'm listening to try to defend him. I'm just like, bullshit. And I'm a neutral guy. I'm the person that most of these guys probably should be speaking to, because I'm in the middle. I'm the guy that I will not vote Republican or Democrat across the board. I jump side to side. It's like, well, in this situation, I think like this. In this situation, I think like that. I'm the swing vote. You know,
Yeah.
you can convince me. I'm not die hard. And so I'm just sitting there going, shit, man. I got nothing. And I'm usually pretty good at bullshitting my way out of stuff. I'm just sitting there going, no, this is done.
You know what? When I left the house tonight to come over, there was a town hall debate going on CNN between Bernie Sanders and John Kasich, governor from Ohio. The one Republican presidential candidate in this last election who refused to the end to endorse Donald Trump, who just wasn't having any part of it. And here were two guys. Now, this was prearranged. These guys were already booked before all this craziness was happening. And they're basically having a political debate because one or both of them could be in the mix in 4 years when we have another presidential election. But you know what was so reassuring about it was there was one guy who I politically agree with, another guy who I basically don't, but they're just talking about issues. There was no name calling. There was no grandstanding. There was no boasting. And Kasich even said, he said two things that stuck with me. He said, number one, he said, Bernie and I disagree on 9 out of 10 things, but something we do agree on? Reforming corporate welfare. We don't like big corporations, basically being wards of the state. And that's something we can work together. Then they went off on a dialogue about that. They had an actual substantial discussion about how to reform that aspect of society. And then Kasich also said something else. He said, I would challenge everybody watching this to spend 10 minutes in the next day watching or reading something that you disagree with. Just listen to what the other side, and it's like, that shouldn't be so refreshing. That should be the norm. But in this current climate, I was just like, listen, look at this.
The problem is that when people are, it's very common. And that's why I think over the years, once I learned this from the psychologist I was friends with, and she broke it down to me. She goes, it's called backfire. I forgot the name that clinically they have for it. But basically, it's like the amygdala or amygdala. Shit, I'm horrible at pronouncing names. But the part of your brain that basically is the fight or flight or defends yourself in a traumatic situation.
The medulla?
Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Okay. There you go.
What?
Thank you.
Oh, Travis had it. What? Medulla oblongata. Oh, medulla oblongata. I had half of it. Thank you,
Anyways,
Travis. You complete me.
Maybe I'm not correct on that. What she told me was that the part of your brain that if a lion walks in the room, you're like, oh, shit. That part that spurs you to action is actually the same part of your brain that activates when someone attacks not just a belief about something, not like me saying, well, George Washington cut down a cherry tree and, and he told the truth, type scenario where it's like, oh, and I tell you, oh, that never happened. It was a story made up by, an author, years later, to sell books. But if I say something as far as like, well, this guy was actually a racist or this guy was actually, cheating on his wife the whole time, something that, you hold that guy dear and it's a core belief that person is essentially, like if I tell you like, well, Hitler had a dog, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, well, wait a minute, he was the most evil guy in the world. I'm like, I'm not arguing that he wasn't a scumbag.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that from sun up to sundown, he wasn't eating babies. And, like there were probably factors that were like, oh, wow, I can't believe the guy actually has an animal. Like he's good to a pet, the guy painted, so whenever you attack someone's core beliefs, that part of the brain fucking fires off and they just double down on whatever the fuck you're saying. And as humans, because we're wired that way, very few of us are able to let that initial shock of just, no, that you can't attack what I think, this pretty house that I built in my consciousness of what reality is. If you dare disrupt this cohesive narrative I have, now that you attack me as the enemy, it's like, well, shit, dude, I'm just pointing out that this might not, Santa Claus might not be real, man, Yeah. And all of a sudden, like, now, you want to burn me at the stake. And so, and that's the problem we have. And I think that's what a lot of people take advantage of. That's why you see that different forms of thought really indoctrinate young children. Because if I can get to you first and get you to think the way I think to begin with, while you're a blank slate, whether it's your parents teaching you, through the church talking to you about politics or whatnot, or the absence of, maybe you hang out and your parents are just these hippies, and now, oh shit, you're a hippie too, go figure, you know what I mean? Like, then once we have you formed, man, people don't jump back and forth. They just, and to try to get them to do so, it's like attacking them with a weapon. So, I mean, that's the same kind of response you get. So that's why, like you said, it's refreshing to see that. Like when he sits there and goes, hey, find something you disagree with. I guarantee you 99% of the people cannot do that. Whatever the percentage is. It's a very high percentage of people that just will not ever.
They don't like the feeling.
No, they don't want to question whatever beliefs they have.
And that right there is conventional religion personified.
Yeah, politics, policy, martial arts was that way. And I think maybe that's why I have an advantage that other people don't have, that allowed me to not fall into that dogma, because growing up in the world of martial arts, until the UFC came around, MMA, we had some pretty fantastical views of, well, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal, Van Damme, they did this and this is what would happen. And I think most people, when we watched the first UFC, kind of had a preconceived notion of what a fight would look like. Well, and here I trained all these like in block, chop to the neck, kick to the groin. If I hit you one time in the solar plexus with my reverse punch, you're done, And then we watch the fights and go, oh shit, that's nothing what I thought a real fight would look like. They're on the ground rolling around like, he's between his legs. What the hell is that? And so at a very young age, I got to where that crushed me. I'm sitting there, a practitioner in karate. My father owned a karate school, was a Kempo karate under Ed Parker's system, right? And so I thought that Kempo karate was the you get into a street fight, you'll fuck somebody up. And then after watching that, I was still in denial. At 13 years old, I'm like, oh no, that can't be happening. They must set these matches up. Like there I was, that guy watching something going, this isn't real. No, there's no way. Like I was not even accepting reality of what was happening in front of me and go, this is bullshit. For several years, I'm like, well, then when I started to accept that, okay, this is a dangerous threat, how can I mold Kempo to beat this? And it wasn't until I was 19 years old, after watching the UFC when I was 13, did I finally just completely drop all of it and go, you know what? There's something there. I just need to go in there and empty my teacup and learn what the hell other people, like, this is obviously working. I can't articulate and justify and bullshit my way around this anymore. I have to head it face on. And so I think that was very instrumental to me at a young age as a teenager, to have that coming to Jesus, right? Type of moment where I'm like, you can bullshit something as much as you want. Reality is reality.
Yeah, the ability to reason with it. Watching Kasich articulate conservative values tonight in the way that he was doing it, and, again, in a way that in many ways I disagree with, but watching the way that he was doing it, the statesman-like way that he was doing it, to me, it's like if you offer up him and Donald Trump side by side, and you say, who has a better understanding of what they're talking about? You should be able, even if you're a Republican, even if you're a conservative, you should be able to look at that and say Kasich. But there are a lot of people who will look at it and be attracted to the bravado of Trump and go, oh, Trump. Like this, how many people, casual observers to MMA, would you say, if you put Conor McGregor and Damian Maia next to each other, and you said, all right, you got to pick one of these guys as your jiu-jitsu coach. Listen to their sales pitch. Who's going to make the better sales pitch to be your jiu-jitsu? Yeah, and that person is going to look at it and go, oh, are you kidding me? It's got to be this guy, right? It's got to be, that guy didn't say 2 words. You're telling me that guy's a better jiu-jitsu coach than everything that guy just laid out?
Man, sales pitch is everything.
It really is.
Yeah, shit.
Well, I'll tell you what. This it's a great time to be a podcaster with this sort of stuff going on in the world. Fortunately, we fortified the phone booth fighting bunker, so we can always escape down here. It's going to be a little crowded in here once you get all the, because your family's bigger than mine, Frank. But I got all the pets, so Travis. It's going to be tight, but we'll be able to survive.
Hopefully, it doesn't get post-apocalyptic because we might have to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Meat is meat.
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I overheard your wife telling your youngest son Ronan that if it came down to it, they would survive by eating you and Cage.
Yeah, I'm the biggest. We have to wait till winter so my body stays preserved for a while.
Got that, and
or salt the shit out
box
of
of Earth's Brew, and we'll be okay. All right, we'll close out on a gun story. I'm going to surprise you with a gun story that I got. I think you'll enjoy. After you, Frank, tell everybody how they can help us out by looking up our Phone Booth Fighting podcast in iTunes.
Well, if you go to iTunes, we really appreciate if you give us a 5-star review. That does wonder for us as far as pulling us up on the rankings, getting people to notice us, and bring more listeners to the table, which with your guys' feedback only helps also improve the quality of our show because we have a litmus test. And so go ahead and if you like to, after that 5-star review, go ahead and leave down a couple sentences of constructive criticism, praise, whatever the case may be. And there's a good opportunity or a good chance that we'll go ahead and read it on the air.
Please do that. Search Phone Booth Fighting in iTunes, and you see what to do from there. It doesn't cost you anything. Click on those 5 stars, and as Frank said, we like taking the opportunity to read those positive reviews on the air. So thank you in advance for doing that. All right, as we get ready to close out here, Frank, I had an unexpected issue of gun safety happen to me today. You weren't even with me today. Normally that involves you physically present. I had to go to the town of Pahrump today for a county commissioner's hearing involving a brothel ordinance issue.
Where they said you had too many girls, right?
Different deal, actually. This was not any type of allegation of violation, nothing like that. Some other time I'll give you the details of it. It's actually not that interesting. It involves raising fees and taxes and stuff like that. But I had to speak to a panel of 5 commissioners, okay? Now, my experience in the last 10, 20 years and going into courtrooms, courthouses, stuff like that is a lot of times you have to go through a metal detector.
Yes.
Not in Pahrump. In Pahrump, everybody's walking around in the council chambers wearing weapons, including the council members. Wearing them. Just wearing them.
Is it considered a federal building?
I don't know. It's a county building. I don't think it's federal.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's not even the weirdest part. I mean, we've talked about that before. I don't, everybody thinks that in case, ISIS targets Pahrump, that there's going to be a shootout and the good guys are going to win.
There's a hole in my thought process because I didn't think that you could take a firearm onto, unless you're law enforcement,
right,
onto government property like that.
I mean, maybe if it's
like a government building,
but
go to court. Like I didn't think. I mean, I wouldn't show up with a pair of tweezers.
Right. No, and what's funny because I actually normally carry just this little knife, and I left this at home for that reason, thinking, oh yeah, I don't want to walk in. Boy, this was literally bringing a knife to a gunfight at the county commissioners meeting. So that's not even where it got weird. So that I don't like that. That makes me tense just seeing people, because we talked about that before. It's like this idea that, trouble's going to break out and everybody will brandish their weapons and there'll be all amount of crossfire and only bad guys will be affected, I think is a fool's errand. But one of the people in the council chamber comes up to myself and the guy that was with me and we're talking about the ordinance issue or whatever. And this is an older guy. I mean, this guy was, he's either in his 60s or he's lived a hard life and he's in his early 50s. But I'm going to guess, 60s. So he's, of course, got the sidearm on, right? And I automatically don't like the fact that he's resting his hand on the firearm. Like he's an Old West gunslinger. Now, what I normally associate, maybe you can tell me it's not that big of a deal, but what I normally think of when I think about that is a nervous cop.
No, that would make most anybody in the firearm world, if you know, in this time, I mean, you saw that Yoriko and Ken had their sidearms.
Yeah.
But while we're having conversations, people don't typically put their hand and index their weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe rest your forearm on it. I'm trying to think, I mean, like when I'm shooting, I'm always touching my weapon with my forearm, kind of a mental, it's kind of like a nervous tick that I have. Like, okay, it's there. Even when I carry concealed and walk around my everyday life, I'm always using my forearm, my elbow to touch my firearm, just to kind of keeps me mentally aware. It's just one of those things where kind of like, when you're fighting and you touch your eyebrow, it's like, okay, my hands are up, my hands are up, my hands are up.
Yeah.
But as far as having a conversation with somebody, I would be extremely taken back if knowing that everybody has guns and as we're talking, someone just put their thumb on the back strap of their firearm. That would make, I would just be like, I think I would try to maybe through just visual appearance, like, look at them kind of funny, like, hey, you all right, man? I mean, that's kind of a weird,
I didn't
posturing.
like it. I didn't like it.
You know what? I got to be honest with you. I'm a firearm guy, and
right.
I wouldn't like that.
Well, then you definitely wouldn't have liked this. Because after he does that for part of the conversation, now I'll try to best describe this verbally as I can, because if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. But he's resting his hand on the firearm, and he's sort of fidgeting with it. We're talking, but he's looking down at it or whatever, like he is. I don't know what he's thinking, but he's somehow fidgeting with it. Then, watch this, Frank. He takes the gun. Now, it's still on the holster, but he basically pulls the whole holster clip off his belt, right? He takes it, and I'm where you are, okay, but closer. I mean, we're, 2 feet apart? Right. I'm actually closer in conversation. He takes it while there's this three-way conversation going, turns it like this, points the gun at me, and starts looking down at the holster, looking messing with the Velcro or playing with it or something, while that gun is pointing at me.
That is a horrible representation of a person who carries a firearm.
I agree.
He's an idiot, and he obviously has a little dick. And there's those gun guys out there that their gun is an extension of the inadequacies of their penis. And that's that guy. So that, I mean, yeah, if other gun guys had been there, I would have immediately, and we would have had some issues.
And you know what was interesting about it, though? That obviously would have upset me at any other point in the past when I was seeing it. But this time, it upset me as a firearm enthusiast.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if that's exactly what I am.
Because he's representing.
I felt a connection.
He's that asshole
that
does stupid shit. That when people sit there and go, well, we need a lot of gun control.
Yeah.
They're going to point to that guy.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck, you're right. We have that idiot.
You're
right. Not everybody needs to have a gun because we have some people that are retarded, like this guy. And, it's like, no, you're too stupid to have a gun.
Not that I could not have told you that was dangerous before I had ever fired a weapon, but there was something about now that I have fired one repeatedly that I felt a whole nother level of anger about it. I was like, because really, I was thinking about it like, oh no, I know how to handle a weapon, sir. Well, and that is not how you do that.
You always treat a weapon like it's loaded.
Right.
One of the 4 rules. You don't put the barrel over it, as far as you don't point the weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy or kill. That's one of the other rules of firearm safety. Sounds like the guy was breaking 2 of the fundamentals that if my 7-year-old son would have broke, the day of shooting ends. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that, like, I did that once when I was very young. I was probably Ronan's age. I was shooting with my father out at the desert, and a bunch of people are all out. And I had a Ruger 1022. It's a 22 caliber rifle. It's a fun gun to shoot. It's easy. It doesn't kick very much. It's most children's probably first gun, and it's kind of cool because you can build it up on it. I mean, I can get, there's a lot of accessories. I mean,
you had gotten it for Christmas. You were telling me your mother was afraid you'd shoot your eye out.
So as I'm shooting, my father tried to give me corrective information about what I wasn't doing right, why I wasn't hitting the target. And when he called my name, I did what I guess another 7 or 8 year old could possibly do is, and he had told me, no matter what, the weapon points that way. If you fall on your fucking ass, the weapon points downrange. I mean, if someone comes up behind you in a monster, what do you tell me? I think a boogeyman starts eating your ass. You point the gun that way. Like at no point does that gun ever get pointed any other direction, because there was a bench in front of me. Pick it up, fire it, put it back down. If something goes wrong with it, you put it down. That's the instructions I had as a child. So as he says something to me, just criticism, I turn my body and now point, and now I basically cover everybody, friends and family that are all there. They all do the fucking the limbo dance. Oh shit. I didn't get to shoot for the rest of the day. The gun was taken away from me. I broke a rule that as a child, it's like, I told you, you can't sit there and say I didn't tell you. You made a deadly mistake that could have resulted in the loss of life. And it's funny that here you have an adult in his 60s that wouldn't understand that concept. It's like, and also too, everybody else has guns. Like I tend to not make other guys that have weapons. Like when we go to the range, you don't make other gun guys nervous. It's like, well, we all have guns. Let's just all be respectful. Let's talk to each other. Let me not do any kind of dangerous or crazy behavior. That was why, like, even when I was shooting the AK and that triple fire that it did, you see me pause for a second. I was like, okay, that was weird, because it was something I wasn't accustomed to. And I have other people around me, and all of a sudden it sounded like it went into fully automatic mode. I'm like, okay, I didn't mean to do that. Let's slow down for a second. Then I look over and the kid's like, no. What happened was, and he set up the scenario of what just occurred. I was like, oh, okay. Like you don't ever want to be that dick, because look, man, a firearm, I love firearms, but they only have one fucking purpose in the world.
Yeah, right.
It's not like it's a hammer where it's like, well, I could kill you with it, but it wasn't designed for that. A gun is designed to kill shit. Bottom line, whether you hunt with it, whether you shoot at targets, it's meant to destroy shit. I mean, that's the idea of a gun. It's like, how could I make sure that whatever's over there falls down so I can either eat it or it doesn't eat me?
By the way, the guy was, as he's doing all this, he's rapidly telling
no one else came by and asked him what the fuck he was doing.
Well, no, we were outside in the parking lot, and it was like 3 people standing in close proximity, like you, me, and Travis, but actually closer, just having that, I'm walking out to the car conversation.
Anytime in the future, I mean, and it's not a super aggressive way. Anytime I'm around somebody that's doing shit that I don't like that they're doing, I just let them know. I'm like, hey, you know what? You're making me uncomfortable, man. And that way we could start the conversation. I'm not saying, hey, what the fuck are you doing? That's kind of my catchphrase that I've had to use only a few times. I'm like, hey man, you're making me feel uncomfortable. And then usually the person will pause. I didn't really attack you. And then hopefully, in which it's happened every time with me, the person then goes, what's making you uncomfortable? I'm like, well, the fact that your index or you're handling your firearm right here, lackadaisical, halfway in a conversation, you're not fully focused at what you're doing,
right?
And you've covered me with the barrel several times now. I don't know if you have one in the chamber. I don't know what your expertise is with that weapon. If you accidentally discharge it, no, I don't. So either you stop doing what the fuck you're doing, or just you go that way and I go this way. At that point, that's where it's like, okay, well, we agree to disagree. You go that direction, I go this direction.
It blew my mind, but I guess the silver lining was I realized that I thought about it in a different way, even though it would have freaked me out in the past. Not unlike jiu-jitsu, it was a calm disturbance, if there's a such thing. Like, rather than go, oh shit, it was like, what are you doing, dummy? Like, I know how to handle that, and you're not handling it.
In reality, the scenario you're describing to me, that's pretty stupid. I mean, like, I don't, if I'm going to have a conversation with my weapon, if I'm talking to people, you've seen me before, we've been places where I'm like, okay, guys, hey, is everybody comfortable? I've told people, like, I'm about to pull my firearm out, and then I pull it out. You'll see me take the magazine out. You'll see me empty the chamber.
And still not pointed at
anyone. Still never pointed at anybody. I try to go, okay, I'm going to point it in this direction. I don't think anybody's on that side of the wall anywhere. I mean, obviously, no matter what, there's somebody somewhere. Right. But you try to be and then you'll talk, okay, when I draw, I do this. And if I have a conversation, I'm fully focused on the fact that we're having a conversation about a gun. But if I'm not talking about the gun, you don't see me. You've never seen me grab my firearm, index it while I'm talking about jiu-jitsu or what I can buy for the wife, and play with it, because that casualness with a firearm is when it bites you in the ass. That's why the first rule is that you always treat it like it's loaded, because the minute you forget for 1 second that that's a fucking deadly weapon, that's when accidents happen. That's when you sit in your sock drawer and your kids are around. You don't really give a shit. It's like, no, man, that thing is meant to kill people, and the minute you disrespect it is when usually bad shit happens, and people pay the price.
Fortunately, I live to tell the tale. Follow us on social media, me at Richard Hunter on Twitter and Instagram, at Official Richard Hunter on Facebook. He is on Facebook at Official Richard Hunter, Twitter and Instagram at The Frank Mir. Travis over here, give him a Twitter follow at Scuba T Diving, T for Travis. Frank is looking up on his phone right now to tell you how to follow us on Phone Booth Fighting. How do you?
The Mrs. Mir is telling me that we're on a countdown.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, everybody's got to disperse for a number of reasons. So you tell everybody how to find us.
You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram at Phone Booth Fighting, and Snapchat and Twitter is just Phone Booth Fight.
Thanks to James Vick, the Taxecutioner, for joining us earlier. Thanks to you for listening to our podcast and subscribing, and above all, telling a friend. The most valuable thing you can do for us. Tell a friend about Phone Booth Fighting. For Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here next time on Phone Booth Fighting.
Everybody was kung fu